This morning, I am going to be talking about discipline or moral conduct, which is the second paramita. There's a total of 6 paramitas or transcendent virtues, and they are the core of the Mahayana path. And the motivation for Mahayana is to aspire to have all beings have happiness and joy, and wishing to remove their pain and suffering, and ultimately to establish them permanently in Buddhahood. These 6 transcendent virtues are about transformation, that they are about changing. To be on the Mahayana path, you really need to be both inspired and also to have regret. Inspired to be more benefit to others and have some regret towards things that you have done in the past. And with that regret comes the desire and the motivation to improve, to change. The 6 are generosity, ethical conduct, patience, diligence, meditative concentration, and wisdom. None of these can be left out. They are all interrelated, interdependent, and so they all need to be practiced. So I am going to be talking about all 6. Ordinarily, I would talk about generosity first, but due to a glitch last week, I did not get to talk about generosity. So rather than change the schedule, I'm just going to go ahead with what we have scheduled and then reschedule a talk on generosity in the future. Now I'm getting this particular talk from 2 sources. One is Trangu Rinpoche's commentary on the jewel ornament of liberation, and the other is Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche's book, Dharma Paths. He has a short section there on discipline. Trangu Rinpoche's book translates it as moral ethics, and in Rinpoche's book, it's translated as discipline. They're both good words. So the first part of this teaching is about reflecting on the faults and virtues. And discipline is not punishment. This is a big misunderstanding, that it is not about beating yourself up. It's not about condemning yourself. It's not about other people disciplining you. What it is about is it is about limiting our desire. If it is fine to enjoy life and still have discipline. we can have fun without violating moral, ethical standards. It is desire that is the problem. Desire generates dissatisfaction, discontent. The more we, you might say, satisfy or try to satisfy our desires, the greater the desires become. The classic example is like drinking salt water. You drink the water to satisfy your thirst, but the more you drink, the thirstier you become. So if we can put limits on our desire, then its control over our lives diminishes and things get better. There are two Sanskrit words that are associated with moral ethics, and they refer to qualities of moral ethics. The first one is Shila, S-H-I-L-A. And Shila means cool. When we have discipline, we experience, the Buddha taught, we experience happiness and coolness. And the analogy was like the evening in India, which cools down and you have relief from the heat in India. India is a tropical or subtropical country, depending upon where you are in India. And here the relief is from the heat of the kleshas. The other is pratimoksha, which means discipline. And this means keeping your vows. And if you do that, you will be free from the suffering caused by, again, being controlled by desire. It means freedom and control over our actions of body, speech, and mind. And so the summation of this section in the book, The Jewel Ornament of Liberation, is that we have to break the chain of desire. Again, this doesn't mean that we have to give up all of our possessions and so forth, but it is loosening and eventually letting go of the attachment and the desire that come with it. So the definition of moral ethics is, quote, to refrain from negative actions out of pure motivation. That's on 203 of the Jewel Ornament of Liberation. Pure motivation is taking a vow and then refraining from the covered action. So there's a difference. If you have not had a vow to not steal, and you go through the day and you do not steal, you have avoided accumulating negative karma from the action of stealing. But you do not accumulate merit. When you have the vow to not steal, to not take that which is not freely given, not only do you not accumulate the negative merit of stealing, but you, karma of stealing, but you accumulate merit Because if you have made a promise to not do this, and then you didn't do it. So motivation is very, very important. Now, there are three aspects of the moral vows, moral commitments. The first is restraint, avoiding actions that will harm yourself and others. The second is making a commitment to do what is virtuous and wholesome for ourselves. And the third is making a commitment to help others. So restraint is not harming self and others. Here, the teachings point out what is harmful and dangerous rather than forbid what is nice and pleasant. We all have Buddha nature and are basically good but confused. And restraint helps cut through confusion. It helps us make a connection with our Buddha nature. You could say it helps bring out the best in us. So the formal practice of restraint is that we make actual commitments, actual vows to not engage in harmful activities of body, speech, and mind. That we acknowledge that we need a saner sense of discrimination due to our practice and study. And we see that our mind has calmed down somewhat and we're suffering less due to our practice, study, and attending teachings, reading, and so forth. And that we need to change these strong habitual patterns of ours. We recognize that there is work to do and we can do it and we want to do it. So formally, there are actual moral precepts or vows. Some of you have been here or been other places and done Yungne, and there are Sojong vows that are taken. And they are taken for one day. And they are renewed the next morning if you're going to continue with the Yungne. Then there are 5 precepts that can be taken. And the precepts are to not steal, to not kill, avoid intoxicants, sexual misconduct, and lying. And you can take any one of those or all of those. And so, again, this is in the Mahayana or the Bodhisattva path. For people that are really serious, you can take monastic vows. There are others, but these are the ones that are most common for our Sangha here. And so some of them can be taken for a certain period of time. Others are taken for life. Informally, we can just be more aware of our motivation and our actions of body, speech, and mind. See how they affect you and how your actions affect other people. And engage in restraint. So the next part is to make a commitment to do what is virtuous and wholesome for ourselves. And of course, what is most virtuous and wholesome for ourselves is to practice, to spend more time practicing, practice more regularly, and with more sincerity. Here is a quote from Khenpo Karthar Rinpoche in Dharma Paths on page 152. We make a commitment to be more sincere and diligent in our practice, and thus to become more involved in wholesome activities for our own benefit. So the next one of the other paramitas is diligence, and you can see that diligence here is an important aspect of this commitment. I like to use the analogy of making a cup of tea. And that is that if you want to make a cup of tea, you put tea, what I call a tea kettle on the stove with water in it, and you turn on the burner. And if you, after a few seconds, turn the burner off and then go do something else, come back an hour later, turn the burner on for a little while, turn it off and do something else. And you go through your day doing that, you'll never have a cup of tea. And practice is like that. If we practice some days and then there are great gaps between days that we do practice, even if we practice a lot some days, it's still very similar to making that cup of tea, that the practice is not nearly as effective as if you do it regularly. Regularly in small sessions, short sessions is what I mean, small in terms of time, is more effective than spending a lot of time every couple of months, or even doing a lot on the weekends and doing nothing in between. So it's important to practice regularly, develop this habit of regular practice. So when we engage in positive actions, we are creating the causes for our own happiness. The third here is to make a commitment to help others. And what this means is to encourage others to attend teachings, to study, and especially to practice. Getting together and practicing together is excellent behavior. I am looking forward to the day when we can practice together and not have to worry about spreading COVID. So this aspect of practicing together, encouraging others to practice, and so forth, this has an element of generosity in it. And the best way to achieve personal happiness is to make others happy. That both you and others will benefit from temporary happiness and also permanent happiness. Because when you practice, you are traveling the path. Certainly, there are mundane ways that we can help people too. Can go back to generosity, which I will cover at a later time, as I said. But there are many ways that we can help other people by giving them objects, by giving them encouragement, helping them feel protected, and so forth. There are ways to increase the merit and the power of the practice of discipline. One is the power of pure wisdom. And this is when you can practice free of the thoughts of subject, object, and action, which is very high level of practice actually. But try to minimize your thoughts of I am practicing discipline and I am benefiting others and so forth. The second is the power of prajna, or spiritual understanding. And this is the right motivation, where there is no hope or expectations. And then finally, dedicating the merit so that all beings may benefit from your actions. And what this leads to then is the perfection of both compassion and the wisdom of emptiness. The result of this is Buddhahood. And it is accomplished by abandoning all our faults of body, speech, and mind, and cultivating all the virtues of body, speech, and mind. And finally, doing it for ourselves and for all sentient beings. Trungpa Rinpoche finishes this section of the jewel ornament of liberation by saying there are short-term benefits and there are long-term benefits. The short-term benefit is that this will make all the Buddhas very happy and that they will always look upon them. And secondly, you will be worthy of respect by other humans. This is a really important point because it sometimes gets lost in today's culture. But it is important to be respected, to be looked up to have your words trusted, and so forth. And this makes you worthy of respect by other humans. And of course, the ultimate, as I said, is achieving Buddhahood, where you will be totally free of the suffering of samsara.